So you'll have to forgive me. I get a little nervous in these kind of things, but as Charity mentioned, my name is Pamela Miller, and I've been coming to Heart of God for almost 10 years now, and this is my testimony. So the phrase used to be, some take that phrase lightly. I don't. There's so much about my past that only God and others who were around at that time know. Sometimes I still struggle with some of the things that I feel shamed over. But wait, I'm a new creation, aren't I? I know this because God shows me in His Word every day. I used to drink. I used to do drugs. I used to be promiscuous. It seems from most people, it happens over time. I am blessed enough to have been able to wake up one morning in November of 2015, dump all my alcohol, break all my cigarettes, flush all my drugs, and kick out my live-in boyfriend that would not even consider being supportive of who I was becoming. More like who I was finally accepting to be, though. We have always been children of God, but we choose to follow. I chose that on that day to follow. And because of that choice, I have a wonderful, loving husband, this church family, and most of all, the knowledge that I am always loved, always. My happiness comes from Him, not anything on here on this earth. I don't have my children because of some of the choices I made before God, and now I know all my children because of choosing God. And I have no reason to believe otherwise. He has blessed me so much, I can't even count my blessings. Now, to give a backstory, when I was 4 years old, I was led to believe that sexual abuse and pornography and drugs was a natural, everyday thing for anybody, no matter who you were, what age, it didn't matter. All this stuff went on for years. When I was about 12, I went to a Wednesday night service for church, youth group. And at that time, I was looking at church as being my sanctuary away from home. I wasn't looking at it for what it is, but what I was using it for was to get away from the abuse. And one Wednesday night, the pastor was talking about youth and the fact that as children, we even carry burdens that are not ours to carry. And it's not on us to be protective of others in our family or the ones that we're around. It's not on us to make others do what they should do. And unfortunately, it's not on us to make others stop doing what they shouldn't be doing. That hit me hard at 12 years old. I was going through sexual abuse. My sister was going through mental abuse. And my brother was going through mental and physical abuse. My mother knew about everything. And I mean everything. She asked if it was still going on and kept us there. I felt it was my responsibility to step up and prepare myself to protect my brother and my sister, because I'm the oldest. That was my job. That night, it made me realize that it wasn't my job. So, sorry. The only reason why my mother ended up leaving my stepdad was because she became unhappy in the relationship because she didn't feel he loved her anymore. It wasn't to protect her children. And so I held a lot of pain and resentment towards my mother for so many years, and I just recently, within the last 6 months, finally was able to forgive her in my heart. That's a very difficult thing to do, especially when you're 13 years old and you're telling your mom this stuff's going on, and she knows and she sees the signs, and she still doesn't do anything. I finally told somebody at school, and at that point, I'm like, I just needed to get off my chest. I needed to get it out of my mind. I needed to just somebody else to know, but I didn't want anything to come from it. I was so scared of being away from my brother and my sister and not being able to protect them that I asked them, begged them not to say anything to anybody. Well, it just so happens that one of the 3 friends that I told had a stepmom that was an ex-CPS worker. So she went home and she told her mom what was going on. And because they weren't sure of my brother and I's last name, the cops and CPS showed up at school the next day. They asked us some questions, they got some details, information they needed, and that afternoon, my brother and I did not go home. We went to a children's shelter. My biggest fear was my sister. Where's my sister at? Is she gonna go home? Is she gonna deal with everything that I went through because I'm not there to protect her? It took them 3 days to finally tell me that my sister had been taken and put with her father, so I knew she was safe. About 3 months after my brother and I moved into the children's shelter, my aunt and uncle decided that they were tired of coming and visiting us, and they took us in. Within 2 months of that happening, my father came into the picture. Keep in mind, my father, I had not seen or heard anything from him since I was 8 months old when he left my mom. They were young. She was 17, he was 19. He was scared to death. His choice was to leave. So at 13, I'm meeting my father for the first time. Everything goes well, everything goes great. Move in with my father, and about 6 months after moving in with my father starts doing the same thing. I felt like it was my fault. I felt like I was doing something, or I was meant to go through that. And I also started believing that if I didn't go through it, if I wasn't there to be the one to take all of that, who would they go after? What other person, what other child would have to go through what I was going through if I wasn't there to take it? And so I stuck it out. I was 18, I moved out, and because I still had that mindset, that mentality that no matter what I did, I was gonna go through something like that, I didn't bother trying to keep myself out of situations like that. I just used drugs and alcohol to numb it and pretend it wasn't happening. Because of those choices, in 2013, I lost my kids. And that was, at the time, I thought that was a wake-up call. It wasn't. It really wasn't. I quit drinking, I quit the drugs long enough to get a job, get on my feet, get my own place, and then started back up. Met a guy through work. That's all we did. Drink, get high. That's all we did. I came here on a Thursday night because Keith Miller invited me to come to church. And that night, I sat down next to him, and he looked at me and he said, "Something's gonna happen to you. God wants you to know that. God wants you to know that something is gonna change your life tonight." And that night, Pastor got up on this stage and sang his blues version of Amazing Grace. Not only is that my favorite song, that was also my grandmother's favorite song. And my grandmother passed away a week, literally to the day after I lost my kids. So to kind of give you a little idea on that week, I lost my kids on January 3rd. January 6th, I had planned on leaving my current husband because that life was not for me anymore. And on the 13th, my grandmother passed away, and on the 14th was when I was coming home. So that whole first 2-3 weeks of being back home was very hard, and the way I got through it was just putting myself into work constantly. A couple years passed, and some random guy came in looking for a job. And a lot of you don't know the story, but this was the day I finally actually met Keith. So he comes into the church, or to the school, or I'm sorry, work. He comes into my work, and he's looking for a job. My boss looks at me after he walks out the door. He says, "Pam, I don't know. Should I hire this knucklehead?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Does he need a job?" He said, "Well, he's sure acting like he does." I'm like, "Well, everybody deserves a chance." And I didn't know how powerful that statement was when I said that at that moment. He started working with me, and he became my mentor, because all he did was come in and talk about Jesus and talk about God and how God's changed his life and what Jesus did for him. And I wanted that. I just didn't know how to get it. And he literally told me, he's like, "You just do it." I said, "You make that sound so easy." He said, "It really is. Some people make it more difficult than it is, but you just make that choice and you stick to it. That's the hard part, is sticking to it." So eventually I came to church with him on that Thursday night. Pastor sang Amazing Grace. I was in tears. I was a blubbering mess that night. Here, I went home. I cried even more. Woke up the next morning on November 15th, and that's when I dumped everything, got rid of everything, literally everything. I didn't have any paraphernalia, nothing in my house anymore. And I promised my daughter that because of the choice of me following God, I was not going to go back to any of that again. because I just got her back into my life, and I was not going to lose her again. When God woke me up that morning, the night before, I had got so drunk I couldn't even move. I literally had to drag myself to bed that night. And I didn't expect to wake up because there was so much that I had done that night before. I tried to commit suicide by overdose. So I didn't expect to wake up the next morning. When he woke me up that morning, I knew I had to make that choice, and I had to stick with it. And I've been clean since November 15th of 2015, and I've never felt so much better in my life. And it's because of God. At first, I was going to say, it's because of my husband, because he's the one that came in and introduced me to God and everything and told me who God truly is. Because I had heard about him when I was a kid, but to me at that point, it was a story. I didn't understand that God and Jesus were the same. And I did not understand that Jesus was a real human. I thought he was just a story people would tell. Because I grew up in a home that my grandmother believed. I could tell that she believed because of the way she acted now that I'm looking back at it. But at the time, she didn't talk to me about Jesus. My mom didn't know him. She didn't even know what church was. So, like I said, when he woke me up that morning, I knew that was the choice. That was the day I needed to make that choice and stick to it. So, God brought me through all of that to put me where I am today. And where I am today, other than standing in front of you ladies and telling you about this, my youngest daughter, Gemma, as you guys have seen, she hasn't been coming to church recently. Unfortunately, she's hit those teenage years where she doesn't like mom right now. So she's being very rebellious. So I just pray for her. I pray for her every day. My oldest daughter was put in foster care when she was taken. She's still in that same foster home almost 15 years later. She has autism and cerebral palsy. The parents that she lives with are doctors and nurses. So I know she's getting the care that she needs. My son was adopted. Never thought in my life, ever, that I would see or talk to them again before they were 18 if they decided to come see me or come find me. I decided one day, with the nudge of my husband's encouragement, to reach out to the adoption agency that was handling their cases, and I now am able to get pictures and updates of my oldest. I now recently have actually gotten a video of my son singing 10,000 Reasons, and his mother and we talk almost every day. And so even though they're not physically with me, I have my children back. And even though there's times that we still struggle today, no matter what, we need to turn to God, because God's going to get us through anything and everything as long as we let him. So in the last 9 years, I've been blessed in so many ways that I still can't even list them off. There's way too many every day. Just a single day's got too many blessings to list off, and I love it because I know that's God. He has taught me to understand truth, love, and true happiness, and that happiness does not come from anybody on this earth, but only from him, and that's what we need to remember. There are so many things that God has done for me, and I wish I could tell him, but I'd be here forever talking this morning. But I can tell you 4 things with 100% confidence. I am loved and cherished by God. I am blessed beyond measure. I am my future in him. He is my future. He may not have been my past when I was looking back, but he is my future. And last but definitely not the least, I am a child of God, and that makes me a new creation. Thank you.
And such a beautiful testimony, right? And we all got our own, and man, I love it when I get to see people give their testimonies, because that's what draws people in, saying, I'm not going through it alone, right?